You got to go back to those first days. It was not like, what am I going to do in a year from now? Because I couldn't even imagine a year from now. And anybody going through difficult times, whether it be an illness or a difficult family situation or a troubled marriage, you're like, how do I get through today?
You never know the backstory of someone investing in real estate or attempting to achieve financial independence. One particular person named Billy B spent 10 years in prison starting with his 20th birthday. But now, about 7 years later, Billy B is married, he's living clean, he's a successful entrepreneur and real estate investor, and he and his wife have managed to save almost $400,000 and build a net worth that has them on the verge of financial independence. When I met Billy B a couple years ago, he's also known as Bill, I knew I had to bring his story to you, and I'm excited to do that in today's special edition of Coach Carson TV. I'm gonna interview Billy B, and I hope you enjoy it. All right, welcome Billy B to the podcast and to the YouTube video. Appreciate you being here.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on, Chad. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, so I've been looking forward to it too. So the backstory, just for people who know, we've met a couple times at a conference called FinCon. It's kind of it's a place where bloggers and podcasters go and nerd out and talk about, 4% withdrawal rates and saving money and net worth. And the only place in the world where you can completely comfortable doing that. And Bill and I have had a couple conversations there, good conversations. And I knew at some point I wanted to have you on the blog, have you on the podcast. So I've told everybody a little bit about, your backstory, which is obviously going to catch people's attention. But I think where I want to start is, that part of your life, that moment when you're 21 years old and things change. You're going from, you're down one path and all of a sudden, bam, you're there, you're on the way to prison. Can you just tell people about that particular sequence and kind of how that, from your perspective, how that felt?
I mean, my life changed drastically within 30 seconds. I was 21 years old on the way home from a statistics college class. I was a senior, about to graduate the next year. Everything was going good. Yeah, I was probably hungover from partying the night before, but you know what? I was getting my stuff done, doing what college kids do, going home. And I get home and I'm calling my friend looking for him who I'd partied with the night before. And I call his cell phone, didn't answer. Then I call his house phone. And the other end, I hear a conversation that's going to change my life forever. And he said, Bill, he's dead. He's dead. The cops are here. They're looking for you. They're coming after you right now. And I dropped my phone. I was hoping it was a joke that just like I'm in my bedroom now, somebody's going to break in the door and say, ha, we got you. And I stood there and it wasn't happening. And I started thinking, oh my God, this is real. All those stupid decisions I made for the last 10 years of partying, thinking I was getting away with it, thinking I was smarter than everybody else who's saying don't use drugs and whatever. All of a sudden, I'm like, they were all right. I grabbed everything I had and went running out the front door. The police were already in the hallway. They saw me. I fit the description of the guy they looked for. And I just remember standing there looking at me as they put me into handcuffs because I fit the description, and they brought me to jail. And in my backpack was a bunch of drugs, a little bit of money because I had money laying around from a concert I was at. And I was then charged with reckless homicide by delivery of a controlled substance and on my way to prison for basically the next 10 years.
Wow. It's hard to fathom that contrast from one day to another. And you had some friends, you're hanging out, that kind of thing happens, and here you go. And so, you're on your way to prison. I know there's a lot more story to that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess contrast that moment when, that happens and you go through all that with you're there and I guess maybe the quiet of that first night or something when you're just sitting there, what's going through your head at that point?
Yeah. And I totally understand, listeners are probably thinking about this, how would you do that? How would your life go from that extreme to that extreme so fast? And it's even like that for me looking back. I'm living in a house I own, multiple rooms. It's great. I'm not in a prison cell anymore. It's like a dream that I have to remember, oh my God, this actually happened to me at one point. And when I was in it, I just remember, they brought me in, they put me in a cell, and it's exactly what you see on TVs or the movies, the small little cell. And I remember they gave me one phone call, and who else am I going to call at 20? You call mom and dad, because none of my friends are going to know what to do. We're all relatively young and still kids kind of growing up into young adults at that point. And I just remember calling my mom and saying, they didn't know any about my drug use or my partying ways. They thought I was a good kid at college. And I just said, Mom, there's a lot of things that you don't know about me. And I'm just going to start telling them to you. And when I finished that conversation, I went back to my cell and I sat there in this concrete room with a metal bed. And I was like, what happened to me is horrible. But for the first time in my life, I can actually start being honest with who I am rather than creating all these lies, because that's all I did is I used to party and no, I'm not doing drugs, and hide and pretend I was somebody I wasn't. And so for that first night, it was almost a revelation that my life absolutely sucks. And another revelation that happened was I'm sitting there thinking that normal people don't end up in situations like this. So therefore, whatever the thinking process that put me here is not normal. Like, it's not okay to think that you can end up in jail one morning and this is okay. And so that was another thing that I thought about was it's up to me now to change what's going on inside my brain so that I never end up in these situations again. So being honest, changing what I was, that kind of set my future up for what I wanted. I mean, I skipped over the depression parts. And if you want to ask about that, I could talk about that. Just sitting there alone in a prison cell sucks.
I think one thing there's a lot of things that come to mind for me just to ask about, but one of the things that is amazing to me is that I think all of us have these points in our life. Yours is a pretty dramatic moment where you have like forks in the road, interpret a situation one way or the other. And it seems like you really could have interpreted it a different way. You could have said, this sucks. Look at these things that happened to me. This is kind of hope going on. I'm just going to have to kind of reduce my expectations on what I can do. I mean, how did you, I'm just curious how that fork in the road worked, because you could have thought a lot of different things at that point.
I mean, totally. You look at it, I was in that prison cell and I had the choice to make wrong decisions because I could have said, the cops are stupid for throwing me in here. This is my first time ever in trouble. Why are they throwing me in here? I should be able to get a second chance. But then I thought, like, I've lost control of what I think is right. And so me being mad and angry and blaming somebody else, that's going to do absolutely nothing for me. So I saw it as a logical reason, is like, rather than blaming other people and finding excuses for why I'm here, like, and nobody cares, the police probably arrest me. They went home, they lived their life. They're not worried about what I'm thinking in jail. So I'm like, you know what? It is up to me now to change, because I just knew, these thoughts evolve where, your mind creates what your future is going to be. And it was the best way to spend my energy, my time, was changing my mind so that it would eventually change my future. And at the time, I didn't know I was going away for 10 years. So I was just trying to survive. When you first get thrown into jail, you're not thinking about what's my life going to look like in 10 years, 5 years. You're like, how can I get through today?
Right.
How can I get to tomorrow? Once I get to tomorrow, how do we get to the end of the week? And you just keep going. So I just, when you become honest with yourself, it's like, what personal responsibility do I have in this mess to accept responsibility for? And then how can I change what I'm going to do to move forward?
Yeah, a lot of the things I'm impressed with about your story is, there's a lot of things, but one of the, I think a lot of people are going to relate to listening to, we've all been in places where we've made mistakes, like every single one of us. And we've also had things we feel guilty about, that we can beat ourselves about, we get depressed about. And I'm just curious, like, eventually, once things settle down, you realize this is not a short-term thing. This is a long-term thing.
Yep.
And I've got to deal with this reality here. How do you have a vision for where you're going to go from there? Like, because I think sometimes people, they make a mistake, they feel guilty, things happen, and it's really heavy to try to figure out that the future is actually going to be better than what it is right now. So how did you think about the future at that point when you're kind of at the bottom of everything else?
Yeah, I mean, like, if I had the foresight, like, there's no way I was able to imagine me now 20 years out, owning my house, owning another investment property, having investments, owning multiple businesses, being totally free, working in my home office whenever I want. What it all started was okay, I'm sitting there in my cell, which I had an orange jumpsuit on. I mean, just like seeing the movies, the food tray came through the slot in the door. We had an hour of rec out, not outside. I didn't see outside for a year and a half, I think.
Wow.
I didn't think I saw this. This is interesting too for somebody who's never been in prison, but I don't think I saw the stars for 10 years because I was either inside or the lights of the prison were so bright you could never see the sky at night. So that's what prison was like. And I think I forgot your question. So why don't you ask me that one more time?
No, I was just thinking about the future, kind of.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know day by day, it seems like you've said, you just got to figure out how to get till tomorrow, like this afternoon. And
yep,
but I'm wondering, like, what kind of, because you're a guy who has big vision, and I've noticed that about you, and you have goals. And so what were some of the first kind of future things you thought about that kind of gave you hope that, hey, this is someday, 10 years from now, maybe I can start making this better day by day.
I remember exactly what I was gonna say. So, back to those first days, it was not like, what am I going to do in a year from now? Because I couldn't even imagine a year from now. And anybody going through difficult times, whether it be an illness or a difficult family situation or a troubled marriage, you're like, how do I get through today? And that's the spot I was at. So then the next thought was, okay, well, at least I have today. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know what sentence I'm eventually going to get. I don't know what prison I'm going to be at, but I have today. So how can I, now that I'm clean-minded, not using drugs, not clouded, now that I have a vision of how to get better, which is the first thing is let's quit using drugs. Let's quit doing illegal things. How can I get better? So I think I was like, how do I get better every day? And the only thing that I can say is, I'm a spiritual guy. So I was looking for everything. What answers can I find in the universe that can help me? I don't, do I pray? Do I talk? Do I talk to friends? And I was doing all of the above. And the first thing I heard something in my mind is like, you should keep a journal. So that was one of the first individual steps I did. I just started writing a journal every day, and I have my room here. It's like 3,000 pages over 10 years, but writing helped me identify what I was doing right and what I was doing wrong and who I was. That was big. When I was in the jail, they invited me to an AA meeting, which is an Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. I'm like, I have nothing to lose. I might as well go to that. And I started learning the 12 steps, which was like, hold yourself accountable and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, I have a vision. So let's just keep doing what I'm doing. And let's make a goal that when I go to bed tonight, I want to be better than I woke up. And when I go to bed tomorrow, I want to be better than at the end of the day than the beginning I woke up. And, you do that for a week, you do that for a month, you do that for 6 months and a year at getting better every day. All of a sudden you have a lot of learning lessons growing up from reading books and everything that you feel better about yourself after a year or two of doing that. And that was kind of my journey in.
I think that's amazing because it seems like, all the things you and your family and your friends' family, everybody went through, you've turned it kind of at this point, you've said, all right, day by day, I'm just going to try to get better. And so it's the personal growth, you started to turn that into something to make yourself better and go to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. You're trying to learn, you're trying to read. It seems like I remember you talking about in a prior conversation, you started just like reading every day. And in addition to this, like, what can I do to improve myself? That became sort of your mission or your goal that gave you some forward movement, right?
Totally. Because when you're in prison, you don't have a job, you don't have a life, you don't really have friends. I only had myself and my mind and my vision for my future. And so reading was a huge thing because I had the time to read. So between a lot of times what I do is I'd read at night and then I journal in the morning about what I was learning. And I read everything. I like fiction, but I also like fiction with meaning. I like leadership books. And kind of how the whole self-improvement thing evolved in my mind was, if I could learn leadership skills, like that could help me lead myself into the future. I was never thinking about how do I learn leadership skills to lead this group of people behind me that didn't exist. I was thinking, how do I turn my mind into a leader? Because what a leader really does is a leader changes the environment they're in. They see a problem, they see a possible solution, and they create a plan from the problem to the solution. So these, I was reading leadership-based stuff. I was going to church-type stuff. I was going to Narcotics Anonymous, looking for leadership skills so that I could ultimately lead myself out of a problem, which was prison and my former life of drug using and illegal activity, to a life that is outside of prison, that is free, that is happy, that is can actually achieve some type of purpose in life that I dreamed about when I was in prison. So that's how the leadership books impacted me, was helping me lead myself.
Can you think of any particular books, Bill, that really stood out to you during that period?
Yeah. So I remember reading John Maxwell. I had this in myself for a long time. John Maxwell's, I think it was like 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. I read a lot of Tony Robbins stuff, not promoting him at all, but like anything that was self-improvement, self-help, stuff like that, I was all for. I loved Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance for just quality mental stuff. I mean, yeah, I've read that like 3-4 times because it just blows my mind every time. It's heavy, but it's good.
Yeah.
So anything that was different than the way I thought from when I was 14 years old and 20 years old, anything that was different than that, that's what I wanted to absorb.
So reading good stuff, getting with, in kind of a pattern that's better. I often find that even, not even in extreme situations, but like just in our like real estate investing and our business, some of your daily habits just determine a lot of the direction you're going in. So I'm curious, it sounds like you had, with your reading time at night, you're waking up in the morning, you kind of got some rituals or some habits. Can you think of any other, just in addition to the mindset shifts you're making, some personal habits that made a big difference for you?
Yes. And I thought of this, something when you were talking was, there's a great saying, I say it all the time, and it was true when I got out. You are the average of the 3 to 5 most people that you're around the most. Mm-hmm. You become the average of them. So part of the journey in prison was also, in a prison, it's, 2,000 people. It's like the size of a college campus with a giant wall and a fence around it. In the prison, you usually have units of 250 guys per unit, and there's units all over the place. And what I learned is in a group of 250 guys in prison, I could usually find 5 to 10 that were in there for whatever reason. A lot of times we didn't even talk about why they were in there because it's none of my business. I only cared about who they are now. But there was usually 5 or 10 guys that I could find that never wanted to be there again. And they wanted to talk about what they were going to do when they got out. They want to talk about what changes they were going to make, whether they were big into Alcoholics Anonymous meetings or church stuff or whatever. And I wanted to put myself around guys that wanted to be better fathers, better husbands to the women that were out there. They wanted to actually get a job. They didn't want to sit around playing cards all day, doing nothing, talking about this crack that they smoked many years ago. I mean, that's prison life right there. They wanted to do something with their life. And I found between reading, writing, and putting myself around a peer group of people that wanted something better, you get that snowball rolling in your life no matter where you are. For me, it was in a prison, that community, that I had to find that. You get that snowball rolling in your life and you are going to be on somewhere great no matter how long it takes you to get out of your mess.
Oh, it's kind of like averaging up. If you can hang out with people, absorb some of their thoughts, absorb some of their habits, it makes it a lot easier to fulfill some of the things you're trying to change in your own life.
Yeah, totally. I mean, my first, we'll fast forward just a little bit, but the first goal that I had when I got out of prison, eventually, we'll get to getting out, but was finding people that were better and smarter and more successful than me, because then they could teach me how to do it. And when I put myself around them, they saw me as not like, oh, we don't want to talk to him. They were like, they'd already achieved success in their life. So they're like, I want to help you. I was you at one point for whatever reason in my life. Maybe my marriage fell apart. Maybe my business fell apart. I was you, and I want to help you get back to where I am now.
Yep. Yeah, I think a lot of people they look at somebody who they quote successful, and maybe sometimes the idea is that, hey, this person is too good, or they're not going to talk to me. But I found like the complete opposite. The people who are truly successful, as I would define it, are humble enough, and they're also generous enough they want to see, if you're sincere, you have an attitude that you want to learn, and you're humble enough yourself, people love sharing and teaching, right? Have you found that as well?
Yeah, that was totally my experience when I got out. Was I was wide open. Like, I just got out of prison because I might as well be honest with people right off the bat. And if they don't like me, oh, well, I'll go find people who do.
Yeah.
And I would say 99% of the people looked at me and they're like, you have a great attitude. You look me in the eye. I want to help you. How can I help you?
Yeah.
And just like what you were saying, I'm married now. You met my wife. We've been married for, I think, 5 years. And when I first met my wife, she had a distorted view of, just like you said, rich, successful people, right? Thinking that they have these secrets that made them and they don't like to share them. Mm-hmm. And then she got in the personal finance community, and she's around, people with high net worths and multiple properties and doing really well. And she's like, all these people just want to give, because rich people really realize that there's enough for all of us out here. like there's enough money out there. There's enough opportunity for everyone. I want to share what I've learned so you can go find your own opportunity in life.
But it takes you going out and grabbing and asking and being willing to ask, right?
Bingo.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest strength was I wasn't afraid to be who I was. I wasn't afraid when I eventually got out and if I got rejected. I mean, I got out, I started my first business selling promotional products to corporate accounts, you know it? And I started cold calling, just knocking on doors in the Twin Cities metro area. And probably 9 times out of 10 that would lead nowhere. Usually people weren't rude. They just said, oh, I don't have a need right now. Oh, I already have a vendor who I'm happy working with. But it didn't matter about the 9 people who said no. You're just looking for that one when you walk in the door and said, yeah, I have a need. I have a budget for this. And I want to give you a shot because you seem fun to work with. Let's try it. And so my views of success and what really helped me was it doesn't matter about the 90% of times you throw yourself out there, you pitch something to somebody, you share an idea with somebody, and they say no or it doesn't pan out. It only matters that you get that one time where something good happens from it and your whole life can possibly change.
Love it. So I want to dig more into your business that you just talked about, and I want to talk about your real estate investments because a lot of people will be interested in that. But let's go to that transition point again, where all right, there's a lot of stories we could go into. I would love to have more conversation on some of that transformation. But you finally realize you're getting out, and you get out. And so I guess talk to me about like this, the practical aspect of all right, you've been thinking about this in your mind, you've been working on it, and you're out that first day, like. What do you do? What do you do from there? Like what are the first steps to like make this thing a reality?
Yeah, totally. So I ended up getting sentenced to 10 years and there was no chance of good time parole. So I did every single day of those 10 years. And I talked a little about how I get in. And then the rest of the time just kind of blurs together of every day, just wake up, try to get better. And then all of a sudden you kind of lose track of everything. And all of a sudden it's your last year and you're getting out and all of a sudden time slows down because you kind of, everything became a blur for so long. And now it's like every day is one day closer. It's every month is your last September. I'm going to be out next September. And you go through that year and all of a sudden it's the week before and then the night before. And I don't remember how I slept that night, but I remember when I woke up and I'm ready to go. I'm ready to practice some of this stuff. And I woke up and it was like slow motion. You pack your stuff in a box and you walk to the front door and they check you out, and they take your last picture and then you walk out those front doors and the fences are gone. And my parents were there to pick me up and we drove home. And then reality hits though, because you only have 4 hours of just like glory on your drive home of freedom until all of a sudden it hits. Like you got to get, because in free life, you got to get a job, you got to go to school, you got to get educated. I had no job history or anything. There's so much to do. I had forgotten how to drive a car. I went to prison when I was 21 years old. I didn't know how to buy insurance, all this adulting at once. And you just jump into it. And I kind of fell back to what I worked for me in prison was like, don't worry about the big picture. Just do one day at a time. So today I'm going to get my driver's license. Tomorrow I'm going to get insurance. I enrolled in school to finish my senior year in college. My parents had helped me before I got out. So I got into college to just finish a degree. I started that. I think I got a job. A friend offered me a job. He had a small business within the first couple of weeks. I hadn't heard from him since he was 15. All of a sudden I got on Facebook. I'd never seen social media before. It was crazy. And all of a sudden I get this Facebook message from a friend that I grew up with and I hadn't talked to for 20 years. He's like, dude, I heard what happened to you. I always thought it was horrible. I don't have a full-time job, but if you want to just come, I can help you get started and back on your feet. So I did that for a while. And then that led to another job of stacking magazines on shelves for $10 an hour. But you know what? I was happy because I was doing those little goals. And then what I didn't see coming when I was in prison is once in freedom, here, let me slow it down. In prison, you can only grow so far until you can't go beyond the fences. Mm-hmm. You can never get out to practice some of your business ideas. What I didn't realize in prison was once you hit certain goals, like finish college in my first year, get a $10 an hour job, that doesn't mean you have to stop there. Now you can look for the next job at $15 or $20 an hour. And in the process of there, I had a business owner that I met, like people want to help. And he said, you have natural sales abilities. I can't teach you the way you talk to me right now and the fearlessness you have. How about I teach you how to start your own business, and then you can sell my products and just be on your own, work from home. And I heard that and I was like,
Wow.
man, freedom.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Like, the one thing I hated, I will never glorify prison. Prison is terrible. But the one thing I learned to like was I never had a boss in there. Every morning I woke up and I got to decide what's important for me to think about today. How do I want to spend these 24 hours alive? And I like that. And so when I had a chance to work from home and start a business where I could always ask myself what's important to me, that's what I was looking for. And I went for it.
Yeah. I'm entrepreneurship is kind of like one of those things for me too, where when I graduated from college, it was like, here's an opportunity to work for yourself, have freedom, flexibility. On the other side of that coin, there's no security. But but the fact that you just ran with it and you're like, I will take that freedom. That's my top priority all day long, and you'll hustle. And so you got a sales job basically, where a business where you could go out and sell. You were selling promotional products for a corporate for corporations, right?
Corporate clients. So I became an independent representative. So I was an independent of his business, where then I own my own client. Any client that I had, I own my own client base. They were mine. And then I'd pay him a percentage to do the accounting. He had a sales support team that I could use. So I'd get the orders, they'd process it, do all the work for me. So I saw that. And you know what? I had a good part of entrepreneurship is always, it's kind of risk mitigation, where you try for something, but you always have a plan B. And at the time I was living in my parents' basement, and they said, go for it. You know, you have nothing to lose, try it for 2 months. And if it doesn't work out, you can always go back to your magazine job and try again. And that was my view. I never planned my first business actually working. I was just like, I'll try this. And if it doesn't, I'll go back to plan B and I'll try again. But I knew eventually something would work. So that's how I got started there. The first 6 months, I mean, we're talking about entrepreneurship. You know this too. The first 6 months, it was hard. I got a lot of rejections. I think I sold like $10,000, which is nothing. If you think about the profit margin on $10,000, is not that much. And I almost gave up, but I felt so close. And my parents were like, well, give it another month. Spring is coming. A lot of orders, would potentially start happening. And I stuck with it. And the next 6 months, I kept cold calling, trying, building relationships. The next 6 months, I think I sold 180,000.
Wow.
And at that point, I was like, okay, I'm off and running. And the cool thing about the promotional products world is it's all residual orders most of the time. You get one client, they have spring orders, fall orders, Christmas orders, new hire orders. So the whole goal of work is to find good clients that need help regularly. So I was out searching for those type of clients all day long.
So there's a couple lessons that I really like from your story just now, and that I think are applicable to people who are in general trying to achieve financial independence, and then also specifically with real estate investing. Yep. You mentioned about risk mitigation, and I think there's sort of a myth that people think, I get into entrepreneurship, start my real estate investing business, that it's like this wild, risky thing that you're just going to go, it's all or nothing.
Yep.
Some people think you just got to go for it. Where my experience has been, people like you, I've met other people who've started businesses, there's very much this plan A, plan B, plan C, and they'll take a new step as long as it's almost like they can control that risk. All right, I'm going to lose $1,000. I'm going to have 2 months where I don't make any income, but I have some money saved. There's never this like jumping off a cliff into the unknown. It's almost always these controlled steps where there's a huge upside and very little downside. And that's kind of at least for me personally, on a real estate deal, on a new business, that's always my question. It's like, what's the downside? Is it limited? And then how big is the upside? And if there's limited downside, and there's a good opportunity, I'll take it.
Yeah. And when you just said that, what thought of me was like, that happens to me all the time. Like, there's $1,000 risk. Well, if I only had $1,000, that would be an all or nothing risk. But right. Risk mitigation is, well, let's save $10,000. Yep. And so even if I lose that $1,000, I still have $9,000 over here that I can go back to what I was doing. And I think like that all the time. And that's what drove me to save so much probably in the first 5 years after I got out, was a journey of true risk mitigation where I could keep pushing the business, but I'm not spending it all. And if something happened in the business, well, then I still got a portfolio that's starting to make passive income. And that is ultimately what led me into real estate investing, because now I have a sales business and I was looking for risk mitigation. What if I lost a big client? When you're in sales, and your whole business is built on bringing in sales, let's say you lose $100,000 client, you can lose $20,000 to $40,000 of your annual income overnight. Just, it evaporates. So my entire journey into real estate investing was, how do I mitigate the risk of losing a massive client and still bringing in income while I went out and found another client? And bingo, that's what brought in rental property investing. Was like, wow, it would really be nice to own some property that was bringing in cash flow income to me, just in case I had a bad sales month or lost a big client. Well, then I still have income coming in to help me to find the next step.
Yep. So I want to get into this process of financial growth, because I think it's been fascinating to see your personal growth, and that continues to today, just like all of us, right? We're all trying to get better. That to me is the core of all of our stories for financial independence and real estate investing. We have to become better ourselves, and you've obviously become, that's your path. But I'd love to tell people about your financial journey, because I think that's pretty amazing that, 7 years ago, you got zero net worth. You're starting off, you're working a $10 an hour job, and here you are with $370, almost $400,000 in net worth. Like, what are some of the things you learned along the way that helped you start growing that nest egg and building that wealth?
Yeah, totally. And so I don't intimidate or overwhelm people or make it feel possible. I want to make this feel possible for you. When I got out of prison, I had no financial literacy. I came from a world in prison where finances and economy did not exist. You did not, I think I made in my prison tutoring job was like 28 cents an hour. And that was like the highest paying, tutoring. So you're actually a smart worker. So I had no financial skills at all, but I got out, got the $10 an hour job. And somehow in prison, I correlated, well, maybe even when I got out and I saw, okay, I need to pay rent and stuff. Being smart financially would lead to freedom of choices. And so I just immediately correlated, the more money I had savings, the less I would have to stress about money. And I could think about all the things I want to do, like the self-improvement stuff, the start businesses because they're the right thing to do. Help a nonprofit because it's the right thing to do. Start a blog, go on podcasts like this during a work day, because maybe there's one person out there listening that I could help. And my whole goal was to get rid of worrying about finances so I could get to grow into worrying about all these bigger purposes in life of helping people. So, one day I'm going to pass away. I know that I'm going to be on a bed and my life is going to end. And I think that I want those last hours, last day to be like, I made a difference. I took ups and downs in life, and somebody out there listening to me that I might never have met, but I made a difference in their life. And that is more important to me than buying a fancy car, buying a big McMansion house. And so I started out with a small house with a cheap car. It was a 2004 Toyota Camry. Drove that thing for years until I just got rear-ended this summer. So I just bought a nicer car in cash. So now that you start having hundreds of thousands of dollars, you can buy nicer cars, and mine will probably last 20 years again. So I just saved everything. I don't remember hitting 100,000. I think on our first primary house 5 years ago, we put $40,000 down on. Then I started investing in stocks after that. I think on our first investment property, which is actually our neighbor's property, I think I put $55,000 down, which allowed both mortgages I have to be extremely affordable, which allowed savings rates to be enormous. And it allows me to easily save 50% of my income.
So it sounds like, if I just try to kind of summarize some of what you've done, is you first of all, you had to learn how to make some income. You got a job, you got a business, find the path that allows you to have not have a cap on your income. So you're trying to make more income, and then you're not spending all that real basic kind of stuff, but you're living as frugally as you can. You're driving a used car, you're living in the most affordable housing you can. And then you just put it away to save the money and let it pile up. And only then do you choose, all right, where should I invest this money? I have index funds, I've got real estate. And so that from there, we can talk about like kind of why you chose to put it in certain places.
Yeah. And the investing lesson learned was my wife's an automatic saver. So I didn't have to convince her. I mean, that was one thing. We got married. We both saw the life we wanted to live. Sometimes we argue and fight about how to get there, but at least we have the same vision of where we want to get to, which holds us together and makes us work as a team.
It's got to keep it interesting to have a few arguments, right? I mean,
Yeah,
we can't agree on it. We can't agree on everything.
No. And I'm not right 100% of the time, and she's not right 100% of the time. So, sometimes it's a winding road to get to where we want to go. But since we've been together, we've always wanted to at least get to the same spot.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then, but the investing thing, it was almost solving a problem for me, because our problem was we were saving all this, and all of a sudden I had $10,000 in cash saved, and then 20, and then 30. And it was almost like, well, it would be great if I could make money from that money that's just sitting there in cash. And then that led me down to the Google searches of how do I invest? We went to our first financial advisor, which was really great because it was our first investment. And then within 6 months, I was like, oh my God, I love this stuff. I could do this on my own. So we never went back to him again. I actually cashed out all his accounts, got into Vanguard. And I do like stocks. And so I invest in VStacks. I have some target retirement accounts. I have a well-balanced portfolio of retirement, brokerage accounts. And then when we bought the property next door I always wanted to try real estate investing. And this property next door came up. It was like, it's a perfect opportunity. I'll live there. If I learn I hate it, well, then I just sell it. If I learn I love it, then great. Then I can buy more. So, and the other nice benefit was the numbers worked. When I looked at the mortgage thing, it was like, I think our mortgage on is $1,000, and rent I get for it is $1,600. So it's like, man, $600 of cash flow on your first one, like, great way to start. So that's what got me into doing that.
And it was just to kind of go into more detail on that story, you were renting a place. There's like a townhouse right next to each other, like a duplex.
Yeah. So it's
building.
A duplex. Yeah. So it's actually in Minnesota, and they're probably everywhere. It's actually a twin home. So they're zoned on single family homes on individual parcel lands. So they both have their own tax. There's no association fee on it. There's just a firewall sharing the side.
Got it.
So have an affordable house, living with a neighbor with the wall attached was about $100,000 less than buying a single family home. So we're like, man, that's good. And actually, when we bought our house, I actually went with our realtor, went and knocked on the door and introduced myself to make sure crazy people weren't living over there. And they were great. And so I'm like, well, this is a good risk. It was a great school district, good area. And then we became friends with them, and eventually they wanted to sell. And that's when I bought the other side. So now I own both units.
So you live in one, you bought the other, you rent that one out for $1,600, and you're all in mortgage payment I'm assuming that's taxes and insurance.
Yeah, taxes and everything.
Interest.
Yep. So my mortgage payment on our primary is $900, which is pretty dang good compared to what rents are. Yeah. And then I rent the other side out was $1,600, and all in payment is, I think, $1,000 on the rental.
So you've got about $600 to, if you have a maintenance issue, if you got to pay for something, you got you got some margin there to have cash flow to both pay for maintenance or vacancy, but also give yourself some cash flow to reinvest and do something else with it.
Yeah. And so far we're not spending any of that cash flow. The house is in pretty good shape, but I just had a dishwasher go out last week. We're probably going to put some flooring in there next year. So that'll be $2,000 or something. But what we either do is just rather than spending that money and buying a bigger fancy car, right now we're just saving it, reinvest it in stocks, building our cash liquid portfolio up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that way, when the right property appears to us, we can buy it, and I can do it overnight, write the check and bam.
I love it. Real estate, sometimes I'd probably say me as well, try to make it too complicated. Like it's in some ways it's a simple game. You can buy one property at a time. You can be patient. You can take your time, and you don't need a lot of properties to make a huge impact on your wealth. You could have 2, 3, 4 units in the end, and have that be half your portfolio, which I know is kind of your strategy. Have half of your net worth be in real estate, half of it be like in some index funds or stocks, and that nice balance. It's just real simple. Have some real estate for wealth and income. Have some stocks for growth and a little bit of dividends. And that's a really simple yet very powerful strategy right there.
Yeah, and it is. And it's really stress-free because you only have 3 properties, to worry about. Let's say 3 to 5, you keep it small and it's easy to manage, and, you can do it yourself and you still growth. And before you know it, you're financially independent with a pretty small portfolio and you're happy. Yep. My wife and I have become friends with somebody who lives really close to us, and he actually owns 25 properties. And it's been a learning lesson as I've gotten to know him better, just seeing the strategy. And I've learned, and I kind of sit in a crossroads now of, what he's done is just, if a cash flow property is available, he buys it. And that's how he's scaled to 25 plus properties. And so now I'm wondering, like, do I do what I just do, which is slowly collect, one at a time, be very picky about it, really enjoy the property you own, long-term property? Or do you just go, every time you get a $50,000 down payment, you buy another one, and all of a sudden you have 10 to 20. And I don't know where I'm going to end up, but it's been cool to see the differences and the choices.
Well, I mean, I've had the privilege of being able to, you wrote an article, which I'm going to link to in the show notes of the podcast and the description of the YouTube video, about more details about your real estate property. And one thing I like about your strategy, though, because there's lots of different strategies at work, is that you have a business, which is your kind of big wealth generator. You have an engine that generates a lot of income, and your time and your energy on that business is a very high return activity. And so when you look at the other places you invest your money, index funds, really simple, not much time, with a lot of, you're letting all these businesses grow for you. And then with the real estate, you could go buy some lower price properties. You could buy a little mobile home park. You could buy, we always classify like A, B, C, D. Like you could buy like the C- properties, the C+ properties to get better cash flow. But what you're doing, what I like about what you're doing, is it's going to take more money and more savings to buy that next property, but you're buying like the B+, A- properties that have a better growth potential.
Yep.
And if you're patient enough, they don't come along every day, but if you're patient enough to look for the very good opportunity where you can also cash flow it and buy a B+, A- property, you're getting the best of both worlds. You're minimizing your amount of effort. And so like my message is for you and for other people is like, it's sometimes it's easy to get wrapped up in like how many units can I get kind of thing. But if you measure your success by how much free time you have, how much wealth you're building, you're doing just fine. You're doing great.
And that's why I don't know if I'll ever go that road of just collecting as many, because I'm in a really happy, free spot right now where I have a business, which is my full-time endeavor. And it's cool to have little properties, because sometimes I get tired of selling, and it's cool to go solve that problem. And with a portfolio of 3 to 5 quality properties, I could easily do it on my own, have some fun doing it. It's not overwhelming. It's not a full-time job, with my friend that has 25 properties, I wouldn't help them ripped out a kitchen because I wanted to learn. And, at 25, you're doing that a lot, solving big problems often. For me, it's every once in a while. It's pretty easy. It's cool. Like, I don't mind it. It doesn't burn me out. I don't get frustrated with having 25 tenants calling me. So the way I'm doing it right now has worked really well for me. And what I've learned most in life, when you have something that's working well for you, just keep doing that. Like, cause that's where everybody's trying to get to. Like, or at least that's what I should say. The really smart, really wealthy people in life are not like, how do I get richer? They're saying, how do I just get happier? And how do I get more free and have more fun doing what I'm doing? And so that's kind of the stage I'm at right now.
Very well said.
Yeah.
All right. So many good things we've talked about. I'd like to hear just your thoughts on what's next, because you've really put yourself on an interesting trajectory. You're building wealth. You have a business. You're saving money. You're kind of moving towards that vision that you talked about, where you get to help people. I love the way you described that. You're on your deathbed. Like, it's nice to know that you've made an impact on people, and you haven't been perfect. You've had it up and down. So, I mean, what's next for Bill? What do you want to do? What are some different things you'd like to see in the future?
Yeah, financial goals. Like you said, we're getting really close to 400,000. I can't wait to the 500,000 mark. That's just going to allow me more freedom, because at that point, money compounds fast. You should be, investment return should make you a millionaire at no point at that point. So I'm looking forward to that. I have a blog at Wealth Well Done, which I write at occasionally. And I think my ultimate vision, I don't know what I want to do. I want to help people. So I think the entire goal is to get to that, not fully financially independent, but where I don't have to worry about stuff, and just do stuff like this where I can help find my calling somewhere. I do enjoy business, but I'm kind of a eclectic guy where I like to do a lot of things. So I like to do a little real estate investing. I like to do a little sales. I like to do a little business, because we all, people, I don't think I could just retire and go sit on a beach somewhere forever. Like, we need a little drama in our lives. We need a little ups and downs. We to feel excited and happy, we need some deals that work out and some deals that don't work out, because then you pick yourself back up, you learn more about yourself. So even if I don't need to make money, I'll probably have little businesses that I'm always doing just to keep me engaged and entertained and feel the emotions of life. Because I think I'd get bored just sitting on a beach. But
Yep.
I mean, what we look for eventually is being able to live in Minnesota when it's beautiful out, go somewhere warm when it's cold, or go somewhere warm when the winter's here. And, probably more than a blogger, I've always dreamed of being a novelist. So maybe in the next 5, 10, 20 years, I can just free up a lot of my business time where I could actually work at writing novels during the day, maybe give them away for free on the internet. I don't even care at that point, just because you're actually making a difference in people's lives.
Well, what's so cool about, you've mentioned a lot of good things, is that when you start moving towards financial independence, it's almost like, I've thought about it for myself. It's almost like you're 21 again. You're at this point where you can what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Like, this is amazing. And it's scary at the same time, but it's also exciting. And you don't have to figure it out, right? It's like, you got this base of financial independence that's going to keep growing, hopefully. But then that's the challenge, is like, what's next? And it could change this year, it could change next year. And that's really what I love, hanging out with our community of people who are in the financial independence, retire early, not because they're any better than anybody else. It's just people who are kind of like big kids. We're having fun and we're enjoying life, and we're living it and trying to get better. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, totally. And I totally get, you're further along in financial independence than I am. And you probably on a weekday don't have to be sitting here working, doing podcasts. But there's something fun about solving a problem and bettering yourself and building something that you're proud of. And whether it's doing podcasts or blogs, or sometimes even it's freeing just to go fix a toilet, just to get the parts, YouTube it. I don't have to answer sales calls. I'm not working with my mind. I'm working with my hands, and I'm building something, and solving problems are fun to me.
Fixing toilets is the aspiration. I love it. Right,
I don't know about toilets is the right word. That's probably not my favorite one to do.
Every once in a while, though.
Every once in a while, once, twice a year, go snake something. Yeah, I can do that.
You hit your toilet limit, then you can move on to something else.
Yeah, that's why maybe my toilet limit is 3 to 5 properties. I don't know about 25.
There you go. Yeah, you can come to Club Center. I can let you fix some of my toilets if you ever need a fix.
Yeah, I'd probably do it for 1 or 2 days, go on a toilet mission with you to fix them, and then I'd be like, okay, dude, I'm going home.
Then we'll go hiking.
Then we'll go hiking. Right. Yes, let's get out of here.
All right, cool. Well, Bill, I really appreciate your openness and your willingness to share. I know there's gonna be a lot of people listening to this who are gonna be inspired and feel some hope when they didn't before. And I just really appreciate that. So I want to thank you for being here.
Yeah. And one last thought that came to me, and it's everybody out there has a story. Mine was pretty graphic. I went to prison and stuff, and whatever you're going through, financial difficulties, tough marriage, problem with, growing children, whatever. It's not about what happens to you. Like, what I'm most proud about is I'm really disgusted with the way I acted as a teenager, not listening to people, making mistakes. But I'm so proud of myself after 21 when I said, you know what? That's my past, but it doesn't have to be my future. And I am the most proud of what I did from 21 to now 39, is just picked myself back up and fought for what I want. And I hold myself, even though in my past, I hold my head high every single day because of what I did since then.
I'm inspired. So
what I'm trying to say is, who's ever listened to this, hold your head high from where you came from. You're a fighter. You're doing good. You're listening to the right things right now, and keep rocking and doing you.
Well said, friend. All right. So if people want to stay in touch with you, I know they will. Where can they find you? Where can they hang out with you online?
Yeah, absolutely. Go find me on Twitter. I'm on there every once in a while, but mostly just stop by the blog every once in a while. Say hi. Always, if I'm doing new projects, I always put links on there. I might as well keep that around forever. So, which is Wealth Well Done. Just imagine the word wealth, like a steak burning on a grill, which is well done. And just type that in. You'll see where I am from 6 months from now to a year from now to 5 years from now. I'm having fun.
Awesome. I'll put a link in the show description if you're listening on the podcast. You can check it out, wealthwelldone.com, and then we'll have a description at YouTube as well. Hope you have a great day. Stay warm with all that snow outside in Minnesota, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, I'll see you soon. Thanks so much, Coach Carson.
All right, Bill. Have a good one. I hope you found that interview with Billy B from wealthwelldone.com as inspiring and as interesting as I did. Be sure to leave a comment below if you have any feedback or questions. And if you like this type of video or others about real estate investing, financial independence, or doing more of what matters, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the little bell so you don't miss anything. You might also find another interview I did with Mr. Money Mustache. You can see a link to that here in a second. And be sure to check that one out. It's a little different type of interview, a little shorter, but you also might find some nuggets that you find interesting as well. My name is Chad Carson. You can also call me Coach, and you've been watching Coach Carson TV. I'll see you next time.